excited to talk about this partnership between Pump Science and Pulse. And I think for us, one thing that when thinking about the future vision of Pump Science, there was always a bigger plan in place, and it was just a matter of finding the right partner to get on this ride with us. So really excited to kick off this conversation, invite the community in and learn more about what we're cooking. So with that, I guess, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, thank you for, you, Jillian, and Benjel as well for reaching out, because this is something that we always wanted to do and kind of empower. And we were always just wondering, okay, is the right partner out there that's skilled enough, but also decent enough to make this happen? It's always one or the other. And actually, I think between our teams, we've got like the right mix of, you know, incredible backgrounds and understanding of like CT culture and kind of growth to make this happen.
Yeah, it's like one of those things.
Appreciate that.
Well, it's like you have in a room full of what we call PhD gens, so you're in good company.
That's really
In
good.
good.
I'm gonna steal that. That's really good.
Hey, it's yours for the taking. It's yours for the taking. Well, I think a great place to start, honestly, and you kind of touched on it, Nix, is like, you know, Pump Science is really born from like a bigger vision. And for us, I think it would be worthwhile to kind of rehash that vision, Benji, because it really explains why the partnership with Pulse makes a ton of sense. So let's start there.
100%. So I think one way to think about pump science is our goal is to get chemicals that, are kind of somewhat known in the literature to have a beneficial effect on health, or maybe not, validated, uh, and basically like develop the body of evidence that helps support that they do actually improve health. With with animals, it's pretty easy, right? You just like measure how long they live, especially if their lifespan's pretty short. How long an animal lives is a pretty good indicator of, um, does something improve its health or not? But then comes the question of like, what do you do if you want to prove it on humans, right? Like humans take a while to pass away, so the trials and the feedback loop to get data back is really long. But with something like Pulse, you can get it back pretty quickly, right? So I think this was kind of like attractive to us because if you think about it, like all the data that you're getting from a wearable is like a leading indicator, on will it make you live longer. So, everything you can pick up from a smartwatch, like your heart rate and your heart rate variability and your VO2 max are all, what we think of as like leading indicators of lifespan. And so with a partnership like Pulse, we can just, give these compounds to people, measure their vitals from a smartwatch, and not have a perfect sense of the long-term health impact, but certainly a pretty good one. And the cost and the feedback time are so short that they at least give you very early signal, um, before doing something like more expensive and longer. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, one thing that would be helpful, Nix, from your side is just really explaining more of like what is Pulse and, what makes Pulse different than other wearables. I feel like you could argue it's more than just a wearable. So yeah, I would love to hear kind of your the background on Pulse and really share more with our community on what Pulse is.
Yeah, happy to. And thank you to the Pump Science community for tuning in. It's great to meet you all. And for my pulsers out there as well, great to connect with all you guys as well. So to kind of give you a little bit more insight around what Pulse is and what our vision is, we're essentially building the open health network powered by our native wearable device. So we're allowing users to aggregate their health data and store it in one unified single place. So that starts with wearables, but also we're looking at blood work, DNA, electronic health records, etc. Anything that can be utilized to helping you understand your body better and make improvements and also commercializing that data as well. So, we allow users to share that data anonymously with third parties in return for rewards and money as well. And that's inspired by the fact that it already happens. Big pharma is already making money out of our health data. So my question is, why aren't we making money out of our health data, given that we're the ones that are creating it? We're the ones that are actually, generating all of this data that's being used by third parties to, commercialize and make money off of. So, that's what we're building. Like this wearable device, it's essentially a deepened network. Wearable device, you wear it, you earn rewards from Pulse, but also third parties that want to acquire your data, and you also get healthy as well. What we are not is health to earn. So it's not kind of like move to earn, where Stepin, obviously, the more you move, the more you make. I think Stepin's a great kind of product, a great team, but that kind of model, it's not ours. We're very much just wear the device, mind pulse. Simple as that. We care more about how much you wear the pulse device and how long you wear it for, than whether you were going to the gym or not going to the gym, etc. Obviously, I want everyone to be healthy personally, but from a network perspective, it makes us more resilient because there's no way to game it. Everyone only has 24 hours in a day, so as a result, we're all earning the same amount of pulse. We're all mining the same amount of pulse token at the same time. Obviously, there's a big difference if someone's going to wear two pulse devices, but we've got solutions for that.
Super
Yeah,
interesting.
I would agree. I would agree. I think the part that I love is that people can control their data. Like, you have a say in what's going on with your personal health data versus it just, you have no control over how it's being used or who has access to it or what they're doing with it.
Yeah, data sovereignty is really important. I see so many of us are like nomadic nowadays. I live in London, but I think I've spent 5 months in Asia and maybe like a month in the US this year. So if I need to go see a doctor, all my data is in London. How do I take it to country A, country B? And I'm not the only person that's nomadic. I know so many other builders, founders, entrepreneurs, just people living their life across multiple different countries. So if we, my view is, if you can carry your Bitcoin in a ledger, you should be able to carry your health data in a pulse.
Nix, I guess like the question you asked of or the point you made about basically rewarding people for data integrity. I guess like, one thing that might get super interesting is like in our collaboration, you know, many of the trial participants may be token holders in the compounds for which they're participating in trials of. So I guess like from your perspective, this can kind of muddy the mechanism design. Like how do you ensure that people are maniacally focused on data integrity and not, making the compound look good so that they can benefit because they hold the token?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And there's a challenge on both our sides around that, which is, when you're participating in these studies, are you expected to do anything different as part of your day, or you're supposed to kind of do it the same? And I think a simple way of kind of trying to solve for that concern is, let's just say the study starts in April and we're going to have 300 participants. There's going to be 50% that are in this kind of plus using a placebo, and 50% that are going to be using the real kind of supplement. So what if actually a month before the study starts, we're recording all of that person's health data, so we have a reasonable understanding around how they live their life day to day. So as a result, what it means is, we can detect changes in patterns and behaviors, and we can kind of um, weed some of those out. So, we're really just measuring the data from how were you living before to and how your health stats were previously, to how you're living after and how your health stats are as well. So that's one mechanism to make sure that data validity is really kind of of the highest integrity. And second is around also proof of origination of that data. So what we're really conscious of is how do we prevent someone just faking the data? So with Pulse, essentially every few minutes as you're creating data, whilst we're not storing the data on chain, what we are storing is the proof of the fact that data was created. So what it means is you can't just an hour later or like a week later or a month later go back and try and change that data. We have the record of the data origination tied to a timestamp. So what it allows us to do is essentially give third parties and the network this proof of verification or proof of origination for data. And this is actually a huge problem in the healthcare sector. I've done data brokerage for years now, and one thing that always would kind of come up in the ecosystem was, do you have a right to sell this data? And I say, yeah, I do. Well, show me the proof. And I'm like, well, uh-oh. No, I did, it's like one of those kind of things. So if we have that proof of sharing and that proof of origination on chain, then it's much easier for us to commercialize and sell that data and use that data for research purposes and kind of product development purposes as well. So that's like one of the big kind of things Pulse is doing to kind of solve that problem.
Super interesting. So, as far as I understand it, you've got proof that the data was created at a certain timestamp. You also, I assume, have proof of consent from the participant to then commercialize that data. But I guess question for you is like, if you're not storing the data on chain, which makes sense, there's going to be so much of it, and storing data on chain is super expensive. Where does that data get stored? Is it just in cloud storage?
Yeah, so there's a nuance here. And the reason is we're not storing data on chain, just for those of you who might not be aware, it's really expensive. There's also latency issues around reading that data. Um, and also there's actually privacy issues as well, ironically, which is for example, in Europe and even in the US, in Europe, we have the Data Markets Act and also GDPR, which essentially states that a European citizen's health data can't be taken out of Europe, unless they've explicitly given their permission. Now, if I'm running a decentralized file storage provider, then technically any node should be able to have access to that data. So I can't prevent someone that's running Filecoin or Arweave in the US from technically having access to your health data, whether it's encrypted or not. So that's like a regulatory challenge that it's actually, and it's a problem more for the decentralized file storage companies to solve, not Pulse. So what we're doing instead is we're storing your data on the cloud. That gives us the benefits of latency and cost, which we can obviously provide a better experience and a cheaper experience to users. But what we do is essentially the encryption for that data set. The wallet that the user has is actually the signing device that encrypts and unencrypts the data. So what it means is we can unencrypt your data without your permission. And that gives users incredible level of privacy and also the best possible experience from an app perspective that I haven't seen any actual team do before. Typically it's okay, yeah, your data belongs to us, and we'll do what we want with it. Here we get the best of both worlds around decentralization when it comes to giving you the sovereignty of accessing and owning your health data, and also the benefits of centralization, which is speed and latency.
Next, I think that the ability to decide to encrypt and unencrypt your data and having that be at the user level is so powerful. I guess kind of a similar place where my mind goes is like in the DeFi space where you can, or just in wallets in general, where you can, revoke permissions in the wallet. Is it something where too, like, can users give and also kind of take back the permission to use their data, or how does that work on the Pulse side?
Yeah, exactly. That's really really accurately and succinctly put, Jillian. Users decide who they share their data to, and there's different mechanisms of data sharing. So it could be you're sharing your data with a third-party application. like Pump Science. And Pump Science is then giving you value back by being able to see your data inside of the Pump Science app. Now, you can use that obviously for trading purposes, insight purposes, etc. Then there's data sharing with a third party. And that's more around, okay, the third party wants to use my data for product research and they're willing to pay me. So that's slightly different. That there is more about, you being rewarded for sharing your data. And typically it's for a certain amount of time. In data brokers, you never sell your data, you license it. And a license could be 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, etc. And also what's really fascinating, and this is what makes me so excited about DeSci as well, which is in data brokerage, you can also decide whether you want to whether you want to share your data and also get some upside. So if the company actually uses your data to build a new product, you can say that, okay, look, don't pay me as much on the upfront, but I want a rev share if you commercialize this. If you make $1 billion out of this, I want skin in the game. And my view
Nick,
is, yeah.
do you, no, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, it's fine. I was gonna say my view is like at the end of the day, it's up to users to decide how they want to commercialize it. Some people want cash, some people want a mix of both, cash and rev share. Some people just want the rev share. So that's what we are enabling to happen, giving the users the choice around how they want to commercialize and use their data.
Amazing. Nix, are you familiar with the story of Vertex Pharmaceuticals with data brokerage?
Not that particular story. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So Vertex Pharmaceuticals is a huge pharma company in the US. They brokered a data license with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disease, super debilitating. And so what happened was the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation sequenced the genomes of all of their like members, basically. And rather than sell that data, because nobody knew what its value was, right? No pharma company could say, I know that this data is worth X because I can make product Y that, sells more than I'm paying for. So Cystic Fibrosis Foundation basically just brokered the deal with Vertex, as you kind of said, where there was no upfront, but there was a promise of product revenue on the back end. If Vertex was able to discover a drug based off of the data. And so anyway, long story short, Vertex developed multiple drugs as a result of analyzing this data that they got from CFF. And the royalties alone were worth $3 billion to Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. So, it's a really interesting case study, kind of like you say, which is, you can go and collect somebody's pulse data, but it's difficult to know what it's worth until you then go and develop a product that basically leverages that data for some important insight or something. Like the data itself doesn't have intrinsic value. It's the product that's created from that data that has value. And I think this really gets at our collaboration, which is it's very difficult for us to tell you the dollar amount that Pulse data will be worth, but let's find out together what we can make in terms of products like different supplements that basically get at and capture the value of the Pulse data indirectly, and then we can share that product revenue and rewards with the users.
Exactly, Ben Jules. I mean, $3 billion, that's, top 50 DeFi protocol right there. Top 50 market cap coin right there as a result. And that's one example. Like the data brokerage companies that I've been looking at. They're generating billions of dollars in revenue annually using health data. And our vision is that let's put that money on chain and let's put the opportunity to benefit from that money on chain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah,
you can see here. No, go ahead, next.
Oh, I was gonna say, it'd be awesome to hear more about, you guys and how you started this kind of vision and journey, around going from flies and then, eventually obviously mice and then humans as well. Like I see we've got a lot of Pulse community members on the chat here as well, and I think they'd love to hear more about, how you guys have been kind of building this.
Should I take that one, Jillian?
Go for it.
Cool. So, yeah, I mean the kind of the origination story of pump science, it's kind of been a long time in the making, honestly. So, we've been building with the molecule team, trying to find basically our goal is to fund more research using, crypto and basically like not only fund the research, but tokenize that research so that it can become something valuable in the real world. And what we've been struggling with historically was finding research that got people excited, right? That they could engage with, that they could understand. Most of the research that was getting funded was kind of getting done at these universities, and it was very esoteric and only understandable to other scientists. And so, kind of your intersection of scientists and crypto users who are willing to put up money for research is quite small. So our thinking was, why don't we try and fund research that is incredibly accessible to anyone, even non-scientists. And to us, that was like longevity experiments, animal alive, animal dead, pretty accessible to most people. And also you could see it, right? So the feedback layer to the user in terms of what they were funding and what that funding was going toward is extremely clear with the type of research that Pump Science is funding, which is just longevity experiments in these lower level organisms for now. But also, it not only is it like accessible and we like to think like even a little bit entertaining, but it's also scientifically valuable, right? If you could like the results of these studies can potentially validate products and their utility. So, you can't just make accessible, entertaining science and expect to create something valuable. It also has to produce data that, makes a decision. And for us, that decision is, do we advance this, into, closer toward humans? So that was kind of the thinking with pump science. Of course, there are like a ton of more details, but I think, maybe from the crypto side of things, we've been following. So Molecule has had a thesis on bonding curves for curation of token markets for a long time, and we kind of saw friend tech come and get a ton of adoption, and then we saw pump fun. And I remember like the first time we saw pump fun launch, there was almost no activity. There were maybe like 10 20 coins on it, and nobody was trading them. But I remember looking at it and being like, this is about to pop off. It hasn't yet, but I feel it. And it ended up being like spot on. Like these bonding curves for curating early markets are super powerful. And so rather than try and reinvent all the tokenomics ourselves, we thought, why not just meet the users where they are? These are the viral tokenomics. Others are going to be much smarter than us and validate them. The Pump Fund team did that to an insane degree. So let's just learn from them rather than try and build a completely new system. So basically, we just built we launched our first two tokens on Pump Fund and are designing our system after them with like a lot of parallels. So the system that the tokenomic system we're creating mirrors them quite a bit. But so yeah, basically what pump science is to a large degree is finding research that people find entertaining and is scientifically valuable and merging that with viral meme tokenomics to try and fund as much of this research as possible. And then as the tokens appreciate in value and accrue trading fees, that those trading fees can go to fund research. So we think this is kind of like a really novel and interesting idea, which is if you can
Yeah,
create entertaining research, then people will trade the tokens. And if they trade the tokens, you can fund more research and keep the project going. So
yeah.
that's kind of the genesis story.
Got it. I mean, this is really fascinating to me because this was my biggest concern in DeSci, that it was just so exciting but so technical that it actually disengaged the rest of CT. And I remember back in September, before you guys actually launched at Breakpoint, I was at the VitaDAO kind of co-organized event with DeSci World in Singapore. There was maybe 40 people there. and most of the people there that were actually the speakers. And that's, to me, it's like the worst type of audience to go for, where you're basically selling to yourself, selling to like your co-industry instead. And the fact that even on this Twitter space here on a Friday afternoon, we have 115 speakers. That's more than that event.
Yeah, and frankly, like this is kind of the a bit of a frustrating piece because if you read the FUD about us on Twitter, people are accusing us of not being a real DeSci project. And I don't know why that is. I'm trying to understand better. I think it's because our target audience isn't just scientists, and that somehow delegitimizes like what pump science is trying to do. Um, but yeah, I mean, like this is the annoying part is up until, a few months ago, all of DeSci was the same people, and it was the same people at the same conferences, and nobody was doing the hard work of trying to bring new users into the space. And we think that that's important work. And but the result of that is now we're told we're not a real DeSci project. So you can't win out here.
I think that's super bullish. I'm actually going to buy some more Euro and Rift just because of that. Like anytime there's FUD about a project from others, it's because you're doing something right. That's my view on it.
I think one thing too to highlight that's, um, you know, interesting is like, Nick, some of what you were talking about is like how bigger systems are developed and how even within data there's certain incentives in place or how things are typically done. The longevity space is also super interesting because in the United States you can't get an FDA indication for aging because they don't consider it a disease. And so even going back to like molecule and a lot of the type of science that we're funding, it's really also to serve areas of science that are underserved. And so when you look at the longevity space, like I mentioned, there's not like a clear FDA path for, approval for an indication in aging because they consider it a natural process. And so I think also just putting longevity on the map in a bigger way, because right now there isn't, based on like the regulatory bodies that decide what is deemed a treatment or not, there isn't a path for that. So, yeah, I guess just in general, like putting underserved science on the map is also a big part of what, we're trying to do in our ethos as well.
There's going to be a time and a place and a world where the FDA looks at the pump science research as part of its decision-making criteria, whether to approve a drug or not. And that's when we know DeSci's made it, where it goes end to end, all the way from research, testing, straight to, okay, approvals, mass adoption.
Can't wait. That's when we know we flipped big pharma. Um, but it's funny you mentioned this only because a lot of people are asking us to partner with some of the big dogs in the like health, wellness, longevity space, like the Hubermans of the world, Peter Attia, all these people that people consider like the icons in this kind of like longevity science space. And, our thinking is if we hit those people up now, they'll look at what we're doing and say, this is a crypto, speculative nightmare. Like, I'm not touching it. But if the reason they come to us is because we're developing all these cool products with all these really cool marketing claims, because we've run the studies that have generated the data that makes that showcases their utility and their value and impact on health, and then they start asking the question, well, how the heck did they run these studies? Who funded them? And then they come all the way back to like, okay, it's all done via crypto. Like that's kind of the user journey we want to have for those kind of like health influencers. We don't want to just spam them now on the crypto side of things, but rather have them come organically from the scientific side of things saying like, oh my God, these studies are incredible. And then go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's the exact way of doing it, man. There's nothing more exciting when a big name reaches out to you. And we've had that with Pulse over the last couple of weeks, just with the more we're sharing in our vision and the more we're kind of showcasing our partnerships. We've had, teams that we never would have thought would DM us, say, hey, I want to learn more. How can we work together? And it just shows, like it's better to just focus and achieve your goals and a vision, and then people are going to get excited by that and they're going to want to learn more about it. So and then all of a sudden you're not fighting for attention, you're You're deciding where you who to partner with for that attention instead.
Super cool. Next, I do have kind of like a random question, which I'd love to hear from. So, I think building what you're trying to build is incredibly difficult. You know, proving that certain data came from a certain person and that it's not somebody else, and that they didn't put the wearable on their dog is like all kind of difficult. I guess like how how do you guys like actually handle this kind of data integrity problem? And how do you like ensure that, data is accurate and that it's not, they put it on their mom or anything fraudulent.
Yeah, you can normally tell these things during the onboarding process. So the HRV and resting heart rate of 80-year-old is gonna look an 80-year-old female, that's maybe 250 pounds is gonna look very different than the HRV resting heart rate of and the VO2 max of a 30-year-old who's 100 pounds. Or well, not 100 pounds, that'd be too skinny, but 150 pounds. So those onboarding factors around the user's general kind of health influence inform us essentially what to kind of expect. And so there's a range that we look at, so we'll know that if you're 20 to 25, etc., this is a rough heart rate, sleep, amount that you should be having, a rough kind of VO2 max you're having, etc. So if it changes halfway where all of a sudden your resting heart rate goes from 60 a night to 50 a night in just one day, we know that either you're taking a new miracle drug or something else has happened, and maybe your average heart, beats per minute changes, gets higher or lower, etc. as well. So those type of mm, big shifts in your day-to-day data helps inform us around data integrity. And also, to make it really clear, there's no value in you lying. You're actually decreasing the value of the network because of it. So, we kind of call pulse and health data like this asymmetric flywheel, where the more accurate the data, the more valuable the network is. The more valuable the network is, the more third parties want to come in and buy that data. The more third parties want to come in and buy that data, the more money we can kind of share. So if you're contributing data that's inaccurate to the network, you're only hurting yourself and the rest of the network. So everyone's incentivized in the same way to basically share authentic data to the network. And it's, you're always anonymous. So by default, we will never give away the user's name, their email, that type of kind of identifying information. So from a privacy perspective, whilst we're obviously giving away some level of information, i.e., I might be a 20 to 25-year-old male living in the greater London area, and I'm 5'8". You know what? There's hundreds of thousands of 20 to 25-year-old males living in the greater London area that are 5'8". So, oh shit, I just gotta reveal my height. Now everyone's gonna call me a manlet. Oh damn.
You're toast, man. I'm sorry. Your
Oh shit.
data is de-anonymized. Um, no, that I appreciate that. And I guess like one maybe before we go into the like wearable study and whatnot, one more question I've had for you, which is like kind of something I've been thinking about for a long time, which is the ability to associate your health outcomes with random stuff that you're getting, like any sort of product. I'm talking any sort of deodorant you buy, any sunscreen, any like, snacks you get at the store, to be able to associate that with your health outcomes. You know, one thing that a lot of these regulatory bodies do quite well is gating products from coming onto the market that may be harmful. But what we don't know is like the actual long-term effect or have a way to, have a long-term feedback loop on the products that do get out there. Like, do Oreos cause cancer? Like, how would we ever know? And so I'm wondering if, product purchasing data and like these random other associations that you could make with your health data are things you're thinking about.
I'm giving away some alpha here, actually. um, we absolutely care about it, Benjos. So wearable data is exciting, blood work is exciting, DNA is exciting, but actually, there's another data set which is yeah, there's several names for it in the industry. Some people call it real world data. Some people call it lived data. Some people call it lifestyle data. But generally, what that is how a user behaves day to day. So, what did you eat? Where did you go? What did you do? Who did you speak to? Not the exact person, but are you speaking with family, or are you speaking with friends, or are you speaking with work colleagues throughout the day, etc. How long did you sit down for? How long were you walking, etc. as well. Once you start collecting some of that data, you're able to build a really insightful picture of a user's overall health that might be affected by their day-to-day actions. So, like you exactly said, do Oreos cause cancer? We have no idea, but actually, if we do this study for long enough, we'll be able to start understanding and answering these really complicated questions. Because at the end of the day, human beings are complicated. The amount of things we can do today as humans versus 100 200,000 years ago, when we were just like these primitive animals, it's mind-blowing. Back then, what you're gonna hunt, eat, go to the bathroom, and and basically fornicate. But now there's so much else you can kind of do as a human, and all of that will affect your day-to-day and overall kind of long-term health as well. And these are questions that pharma companies want answers to, product companies want answers to, governments want answers to, etc. as well. And my view is we should be able to answer them, provided that users get paid for it, and provided that it's done anonymously as well. At the end of the day, I don't want the feds knowing who I am. I don't want the feds knowing what I did. But if it can be done anonymously and I'm getting money for it, then I'll consider it. And at the end of the day, no one's forced to do anything in Pulse. You could just use the Pulse app for getting healthy and maybe earning some token rewards here and there from some of the other integrations that we've got. But if you want to start earning more by sharing and commercializing your data, I will give you the opportunity and the right to do that. But ultimately, it's always up to you. And that's the most important part for us, is putting the power in the user's hands. Because right now it's not, and it needs to change.
Well, I think you bring up a good point too, Nix, where it's like for any one entity to try and capture and aggregate all of this data would be super expensive and take a really long time. And so I believe the only way that data like this can get aggregated and you can really unlock the insights is actually if it is decentralized and there is different incentive mechanisms in place, because it's just not, I don't think it would be feasible for like one organization to solely focus on this just from like a cost, reach, duration perspective. So the power really lies with the people in order to pull something like this off at this scale, really and truly, and then then have those organizations become interested in the data that's been curated, um, and want the insights from all the data that's been gathered. Which I think brings us to a good point, right? Of like, this whole partnership is built around the vision of doing a human wearable study, the first on-chain human wearable study between Pump Science and Pulse. And so what I would love to get into is a bit of like, what is that study? What could that look like? What is the data that would be gathered? And how does that data support longevity? So I think really start, I know we're in the early days of shaping that, but would love to just even hear the initial thoughts from you guys on what that could look like.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many fun things we can do here, and I think partly this is it's up to us to decide around what's going to be the most impactful study from a commercialization perspective, and also for the community to decide what's the type of study that they're willing to do as well. Some obvious ones, and none of these are like decided just yet, guys. So don't go away and say, oh, Pulse and Pump Science are going to do this exact study. But some that we can kind of explore are, do certain supplements help improve sleep that are being ignored right now, or not really looked at? Are certain supplements improving VO2 max or HRV, with a user? are a couple of ideas that we've got is around energy levels. So there are a few health indicators that we're using to determine the average amount of energy a user has throughout the day. So, can we basically have certain type of drugs that we test that look at a user's energy levels and see if any improvements can be made where, instead of having that afternoon slump where your glucose levels, dip and then you feel tired and you don't feel energetic after, eating some lunch, we can kind of prevent that from happening and you can kind of stay productive and stay energetic after lunch. Is there certain supplement that can help enable that happening, or is there a lifestyle change, or is it a combination of the both that can enable that to happen? The truth is, we don't know the answers, but that's exactly why we're doing the study, to get those answers, to see that out of a potential group of 300 or 3,000 people who are taking part in this kind of study, what are the day-to-day actions they're doing, and what are the leading indicators that help us understand, whether this, new supplement is efficient or not. Really, like what I see of this is like our imagination is the only limit as part of this study, which is really exciting.
Yeah, it's such a good way of putting it. And just kind of building off of that, I feel like anyone who kind of dabbles in the supplement game or biohacking game and tries to buy a bunch of different chemicals, or like, extracts of different plants, blah, 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 whatever it is, oftentimes you don't feel it subjectively, right? Like you don't like sense any sort of change internally as to what's happening. And so, with the ability of something like Pulse to be able to give that feedback and say, no, actually, you don't even realize it, but you have way more energy throughout the day, and you're sleeping the same. To be able to get that feedback and as a reason to continue taking something is super valuable. Versus like I just buy a bunch of stuff and some of it I don't feel, and I'm not measuring any sort of output other than how I feel. And so I can't say like, is it doing anything or not? So when I run out of it, I'm like, well, I'm just going to stop buying it because I don't have a good reason to keep buying it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, so I was reading this a few months ago. I was reading a study of studies done. So this study was looking at the efficacy of wearables when it comes to objectively collecting, participant data. And what they found was, and this is kind of meta, right? Where this study was looking at the other studies. They looked at altogether 179 studies. There were over 10 million participants within those 179 studies. And what that paper found out was really exciting for me. And this was one of the reasons we were building Pulse. Like about over 28% of the researchers basically stated that this using wearable data as part of their study, or 28% said that using this data was more objective and superior than self-reported outcomes. Basically, meaning that sometimes it's hard to see if something's working or not because you might not visually see it or you might not remember it. Our memory, our brains are fickle kind of bits of water and small amount of mass. It forgets stuff and it kind of sometimes invents its own memories as well, which is kind of very good at doing. So wearable data has shown to be much more objective at proving results, which is extremely important in my view because it helps us then showcase those results when commercializing new products. Because now you can go out to the market and say, okay, we've done 2, 3, 4, 5 studies, and one study is even still ongoing right now, and it's proving the benefits of the supplement. Hey, what about this as a fun idea? You've got this e-commerce store and you can see the drug and what it's supposed to do, and then on the right you can actually see the results of the study in real time and even previous ones as well. So that way you can use this data as a way as a way of deciding whether to get the drug or not.
It's the marketing data, right? It is the marketing data. And ultimately, that's it, it's so crazy when you realize that this is, rather than making any sort of claims, like you can just show people the raw information. They can see the chart, right? They can see up and to the right you know, like, and this one is the most up and to the right, so I'm going to buy that one. And you can compare them all against each other. Like this is something that doesn't exist. And you kind of nailed it exactly how we're thinking.
Bullish, bullish.
Uh,
Um,
Bush.
And Nix, I was going to say, we got a question from the community that I'd like to toss in around, and it kind of goes to what you touched on, where there's like things that are happening, with your body, like more like, I guess, at a subconscious level that you might not be aware are happening. That would be really hard to self-report. But then there are things that you may need to report, to ensure that it's like, oh, I took this at this time, or I'm verifying that I took it every day. And one question from the community was, is it possible to add an incentive for accurate habit reporting, potentially, where you may need to self-report something, or just ensuring too, like wearing the device, I guess you could say, for the appropriate duration, et cetera. But adding in, is there a possibility to add in an incentive to help create the behaviors and accuracy?
yeah, this is something we've thought about a lot. Where if we are doing a study, how can we prove someone is taking the supplement consistently at the right time? Um, so these are things that we've been thinking about around, okay, can we build inbuilt camera that, you can kind of take a picture of you taking supplement, so we kind of reward you for consistency around taking it at the same time every day, the same amount every day, as a way of, helping prove that the study was done accurately, and also then, giving the network more value because it's got more accurate data as well. So there's like two different kind of benefits for us. One is on a micro level, which is the study, and then on a macro level, which is the network itself. So yeah, these are things we're going to enable to ensure that we're getting as accurate data as possible. I mean, it's not just about what you ate at what time. It could be like what you did as well. So can we incentivize you for sharing, again, anonymously sharing data around, were you working 8 hours today, or did you do 5 hours, or were you back to back in meetings all day? Because all that data will help us understand why you might be feeling tired or feeling a certain way later on in the evening or the next day, etc. For example, a lot of people just sometimes forget that they haven't met their friends in a few weeks. Work gets really, really busy. And then, we all know that, I mean, it's well documented that, good relationships with friends and family, like, like good social relationships is a leading indicator of someone that's happy and, not kind of going through levels of depression. And this type of information, it's kind of hard to collect because there's no way you can kind of automate the that to a certain extent. Did I meet my mom? Obviously, I can automate. Did I call my mom? So this type of stuff we're very interested in, but we want to collect this data and have it contributed, as privately as possible, and to make sure people are kind of rewarded for taking that risk as well, for sharing that data and taking that initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's, to your point, there's a lot of like thinking and design that we can do, and are going to do to really figure out the best way to structure these human studies. I did want to flag too, I pinned a tweet in the space. If you're interested in kind of getting ahead of the game, because I know we've talked a lot about the Pulse Pump Science arena that we're going to be opening up here soon. But if you want to learn more or even potentially be a part of it, click into that tweet. What it has is a read up on the study. There is a link to a type form where you can drop in some information for us to contact you if you're interested in participating. And then the Pulse team did give our community an exclusive discount on a Pulse wearable device. So there is also a link to that as well. So be sure and check out that pinned tweet. And if you're interested in, us following up with you on more information in the study or potentially participating, please drop your information in that type form.
Awesome,
All right.
awesome.
So
Should we take
one,
some? Yeah, yeah. Should we take
I
some
was gonna
questions from
say,
the community?
you read my mind. Next, read my mind. Community, we want to hear from you. So if you have questions, raise your hand. We'll bring you up to speak. And I'm also monitoring the Pump Science Telegram chat. If you guys want to drop questions in there, we can do rapid fire.
Yeah, I've got a few from our Discord, which I can kind of go through while we're waiting. Unless someone wants to come up and ask, we're gonna give them 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right. Okay. I'll go for it. Specifically around most of these questions. I'm just looking through, there's like 10, 15 questions we've got here. So people are asking, what are the full list of metrics that Pulse is going to cover? So yeah, it's a really good question actually, because we haven't talked about it today. So we're using the same family of sensors that Whoop, Aura Ring, etc. kind of use. They're very, very similar PPG sensors that most of the kind of existing wearables on the market use at the moment. So with that we get heart rate, your sleep, VO2 max, estimated blood oxygen levels as well. And using all of this data, we can calculate HRV, resting heart rate, rough guidance around like your stress levels and energy levels as well. And we also have an invert vibration mechanism on device. So it can kind of nudge you a little bit to, if you forget to kind of, go to the gym. So someone in our community, I remember, asked, can the can the pulse give them an electric shock, whenever they don't go to the gym? So, that was the inspiration behind that micro vibration, basically. And then so just to kind of follow up on that, yeah, so the device is waterproof. IP68 is like the waterproof level that we've kind of gone for, which again is like very similar to Whoop and some of the other kind of wearables on the market. And it gives you up to between like 5 and 7 days of battery life, just depending on how much you're kind of using the device.
We had a question on, is there a defined start and end date for the Pulse Pump Science study?
No, not yet. I mean, we'll we'll move as fast as we can. But yeah, no. I would say like approximately, start of Q2. Hopefully we can get it in Q1, but would rather over deliver.
Yeah. Someone's asking, how can we be sure that someone doesn't wear two pulses on their arm? Um, that's a good question. That I'm sure that's probably going to happen. But we've got algorithms that we've already kind of been designing that can detect duplicate health data. So, surprise, surprise, if your heart rate isn't gonna change because it's the wearable is further up your arm or further lower on your arm. That's largely gonna stay the same. So, we've got a pretty good confidence factor at knowing if someone is pulse maxing a little bit too much.
Awesome. Any more
Awesome.
questions on your side? I don't see any more in our Telegram. And like we said, feel free to raise your hand and come on up. We'll gladly bring you to the stage to ask a question.
I just invited somebody.
Oh, nice.
Hello?
Hey, Don.
I had a question about the roadmap and the future in terms of the project itself, and in terms of if there's a plan on releasing case studies or a thesis to kind of legitimize the project even more and bring it into the mainstream, and as you guys discussed, into the big forefront of biotech as the Hubermans of our industry, so to say.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think that's a big reason for the partnership that we're having here is to actually show a specific use case of how DSci and DPIN can be used to generate data that the traditional system can't generate, right? Like we have the opportunity here to do something that's never been done before, which is like a global distributed human trial of a product that gets valuable outcome data from people that indicates whether, this product is healthy or not, and contributes to the health of the participants who took it versus the ones who didn't. So I mean, we're doing our best to legitimize, and this is like a huge step in the right direction, we think, in terms of, pairing the, therapeutic, so to speak, with the diagnostic, so to speak. And so you have the input and the output. And, I mean, with the data that we generate here, I'm sure we could publish it in the traditional scientific journals. And yeah, like this is our goal to, legitimize ourselves, is do things that the original system can't do, like basically beat them at their own game, which is generate better data than they can generate and still be able to publish in all the same journals that they can. Nick's, anything to add there?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is exactly why we're so excited because we want to go into normie science world and show them that Nisa and Deepin basically delivered a study, results-driven, data-driven study that is just as effective, if not more effective, than how traditional kind of research happens. And I want to use this case study. We absolutely have to use this case study for creating legitimacy, getting more eyes in the space, helping us kind of level up and go from what is essentially a niche community today to like a very mainstream community where you know why is that like right now, like all of our friends are buying meme coins because they find it fun, but most of our friends have seen a doctor before. If not all of our friends have seen a doctor before. Most of our friends, if not all of them, have once in their life taken a drug or a supplement, etc. So health is like one of the most unifying factors of all man. So my view is, okay, well, why can't we get the right data and take DeSci and deep into the next level where instead of buying the next Dogecoin, you're buying the next pump science coin.
Hell yeah. Any more questions coming up, either Jillian or Nick's, in your respective chats?
Not that I can see. I'm gonna check a few more channels real quick, but so far okay.
Yeah. A lot of my questions are about the ones that we've already answered around data privacy, etc. So we covered that. Someone's asking, will there be a sleep feature that wakes you up when you're in a light sleep phase? Hey, that's an interesting idea. Um, I think we'd have to experiment with that to whoever asked it. Because obviously what we don't want to do is wake you up at the wrong time in case you're still sleeping. Um, but can Pulse act as like a soft alarm clock to wake you up? My answer is why not? We just have to make sure it doesn't wake you up when you're when you're fast asleep, getting that REM.
Awesome. I don't see any more questions. I think Nick's exactly what you just talked about. It's so cool to have a community coming together too, because there's kind of how like we might think about it, but would love to have the community continue to speak into and come up with ideas for human study designs, give feedback on how things are being designed, and that's really the goal, is to bring a community together to help shape the science and see the science as it's unfolding. I think a good way to close it down would be maybe Nick's, if you want to speak first about any things that are kind of coming up on the pulse side, and then Benji, I know we can share a quick recap of things that are coming up on the pump science side, but just kind of looking ahead for both projects.
Yeah, sure. So for us, we're getting ready to ship our devices out in Q1. So, that's the most kind of exciting factor. The earlier you buy your pulse, the faster you're going to get it in the queue. We also have a beta test program as well. For more information on that, you can go on our Discord. So if you want to be a beta tester before the devices are shipped and try a pulse, feel free to go on our Discord and kind of make an application. And for those of you who haven't got a pulse already, as Jillian mentioned, if you go on one of the pinned tweets, you'll see that there's a discount called Science. So to take part in this study, that we're launching in, Q2 next year, you have to obviously own a pulse. So that kind of obviously is the way we collect and measure the data to kind of prove the efficacy of the supplement. So feel free to kind of uh, acquire pulse, guys, and if you've got questions, etc., feel free to join our Discord and kind of ask them.
Awesome. I definitely ordered my pulse, so I'm eagerly waiting. Um, hopefully we'll get it before the mice studies. But yeah, so on our side, we've got the human study with pulse that's coming up in Q1, Q2. But before that, we've got the mice experiments starting in mid-January. So in mid-January on the pump science side of things, we're going to be testing Riff and Euro for endurance on mice as well. It's super similar to like the VO2 max test that Pulse will be able to capture from their device, but we're going to be testing it on the mice. So we'll announce more details about that shortly, but the mice have been ordered. The device that they're going to be tested on has also been ordered. So the last thing left to do is actually name the mice. So we'll have like a mice naming contest that we'll be announcing shortly. Yeah, the names that we've already got are pretty hilarious so far.
That's that's so funny. The mice have been ordered. I was wondering, where'd you get the mice from? Do you go to the local pet shop? Or do you have to get specific mice, a specific breed, etc., lab quality mice, basically?
You know, if
Um,
you leave some cheese outside of your front door, they just show up.
Gloves.
No, we get them from like a facility in the US that's actually right by the contract research organization that we're using. So yeah, on the horizon for us, mice naming contest will be coming up shortly, mice experiments in January, and then following that, we'll be launching more compounds on our app. So besides Riff and Euro, but that'll only go on after the mice experiments have started. And then after that will come hopefully the human study. So we'll be working toward those few things. But yeah, thanks so much to everyone for joining. Nix, you're the absolute best. Just wanted to thank you so much for partnering with us, for joining the space, for telling your story, and we could not be more excited about what you guys are building.
Thanks, Ben. Just really appreciate it. And feelings mutual. We're really excited to work with you guys and the other PhD gens as well.
Awesome. Likewise. If you guys have any other questions in the community, feel free to drop in questions in the Telegram. We'll be sure to follow up and answer them. I've seen a couple great requests come through. Yep, just a reminder to plug a plug for the reading up on the study, ordering a device, and then if you want to be a part of the Pulse Pump Science study, just click into the pinned tweet. And Benji did give away a little bit of alpha. The mice naming contest will be coming up and announced here soon, and the winners of that we will be partnering with Pulse to give away a couple free pulses. So more details to come. Be on the lookout for that. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Great conversation, and looking forward to getting this first human on-chain study underway.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. We'll speak soon.
Peace.